Welcome to Streams of Income with self-help author Ryan Rieger. For the next hour, you'll hear proven methods for how to live the multiple income streams dream. Ryan is passionate about helping others discover their gifts and start their own business. He's published 5 books, and his courses and group coaching programs have changed the lives of thousands of students all over the world. Ryan's books include Private Label, The Easy Way, Finding Your Grace Place, and his latest, Streams of Income. And now, here's your host, Ryan Rieger.
Hey guys, welcome back to the Streams of Income radio show. I'm your host, Ryan Rieger, and today I'm chatting with Brent Bowers. And I gotta say, one of the coolest things about being a podcast host is the really awesome people that I get to talk to and get to meet and build relationships with. And Brent is one of those that I am so glad I said yes to. He is dealing in land. He makes passive income from buying and selling land. It's so cool. I'll always like to look for unique stories like this. He is a veteran and loves to help veterans make extra money, but has a whole program where he will teach you how to find the land, how to buy it, how to sell it, how to make passive income from it. I had Stephen Hibbert on there with me as well, too, because Stephen's as you know, is a real estate guy. We just had a fun conversation, learning about Brent's story, how he got started, what he's doing now. And if you want to learn more, go to thelandsharks.com, thelandsharks.com. Brent has his own podcast, and he's got a couple freebies he can give to you. I'll put the link in the show notes. The postcard that he sends out is one of them. And then also his sales or his letter, his purchase agreement that he sends out as well to some people. He actually will get some people to sign that purchase agreement and send it back to him, and he buys land that way. It's pretty crazy. But Brent's a really, really cool guy. Pretty sure I'll have him on again because there's just so much more we could have dug into. I know you're going to love this interview. Here it is. Brent, welcome to Streams of Income. So glad to have you.
Hey, great to be on. I love the name of this podcast, Streams of Income.
We like talking about streams of income. We do. I've been doing this 3.5 years. I saw that you had Interview Valet. Is that working really well for you?
I love Interview Valet. Awesome. They connect me with good guys like you. They are next level. They help me pretty much take the thought out of it. Yeah. The monkey just comes and performs, and I'm so cool. So
that's so cool. How many podcasts have you done recently through them?
I think I've done about, 15 or 20 this year already.
That's awesome.
So,
wow.
No, I'm probably about 15, actually. 15.
That's crazy.
So us entrepreneurs and visionaries.
In the middle of February.
Yeah. We visionaries and entrepreneurs, we always blow things out of proportion. So I have to reel myself back all the time.
Had 200 interviews so far this year.
I've been on 5,000 interviews.
We met a guy at Podfest that wanted to do some insane number. Remember? For the year, I forget.
Oh yeah, he wanted to do 90 podcasts in 90 days. I thought, wow, yes. that's it. Very aggressive.
That's awesome. That would be so cool. I think I can do that. I really do, because this is the easy side. You host, you guys asking the questions. You have to think. I just blah blah blah.
Because you already know all this stuff that you're going to be talking about, unless I ask you something really crazy off the wall. Yeah. So cool. Well, obviously, I don't know. You probably don't have. There's no way you have time to listen to podcasts of everybody that you're on. But I love to hear people's stories. So if you just take us back to when you got started, anything that you feel is relevant. But I love hearing folks' stories because it's just so fascinating.
Yeah. So I've always been interested in having multiple streams of income. Robert Allen, a real estate coach that Stephen probably knows about, talked about multiple streams of income. Most millionaires have 7 streams or more of income. I wanted to be rich. Growing up, it was just pretty simple. I would know when my dad was coming to pick me up from daycare, because I would hear this piece of crap car coming, and everyone was like, Brent, your dad's here, Brent, because they would hear it for miles. But what was really fun about that car was, we'd be going down the road, and let me just put this disclaimer out there. My dad never missed a day of work ever, and my mom didn't either. They were both the hardest workers ever. Yeah. But they work for other people and they built other people's businesses.
Yep.
So going back to the car, I would drop beer cans. We would lift the mat, those rubber mats so you don't get mud in the car.
Yep.
My dad had some of those, not to protect the car, but it was so your foot didn't go out of the hole in the floor. So I would drop beer cans going down the road out the car. So I just knew that one day I wanted to, have a lot of money and, buy things and, help my parents. And they don't need help anymore. They're doing good. But
Awesome.
I just wanted to change that. And I did that with real estate.
That's
Got into real estate 2007, got my real estate license, bought that first rental property. Then 2008 happened and kicked my butt. I quit. I went for an easier career, which was the military. I thought, and did a couple combat deployments in Afghanistan. Yeah, God bless, man. God bless our troops. My first wife ended up leaving me for another man on my second deployment. So I got some bruises and battered a little along the way. And then 2013, the military pulls me out of that second deployment, says, we're going to send you to school to be an officer. I got to go to college, a private school, and I started wholesaling houses to pay for classes, and the tuition. And then ultimately found the woman of my dreams, got married. We moved to Colorado. I started wholesaling houses out there, and I was picking up rentals along the way. But one thing they don't tell you about rentals is you accumulate a lot of debt buying these things and fixing them up. And I was always in the negative every year. I never made money on these rentals, even though I was getting $200-$300 a month net. So, and I'm doing that air quotes. Anybody listening to this, net. You can almost set your watch by it, but about every 6 to 8 months, something will break, like a water heater, an air conditioner, a sewer system, a sewer pipe. I once had a geyser of sewer water coming through a bathtub drain in a basement. Crazy how that happened. But I always lost money, and I was searching for answers, kind of like on Streams of Income podcasts like this. And I heard about a guy flipping land, and this was early 2016, and he was talking about like doubling his money in like 2 days on land. And I was like, wait a minute, I'm going to prove this wrong. There's no way it's that easy. So I started mailing landowners that were behind on their taxes and haven't looked back since. So here we are today.
Wow. That is so cool. What'd you do right before, you said 2007, you got into real estate. What were you doing before that? Have you always been like entrepreneurial minded?
Yeah, I had a lawn service that I started. In like middle school. I borrowed the neighbor's lawnmower and mowed the other person's grass. And
That's awesome.
Yeah, I got to where I ran that mower to the ground, and then my grandpa drove a lawnmower down from Alabama to Florida, and it didn't work. He didn't drive the lawnmower. He put it in the back of the truck. But me and my dad fixed it, and I got that thing running, and I ended up building. I was doing like 150,000 gross in 2004 when I graduated high school. And then my dad came out with me in like 2006 or 2005 or 6 time frame. And I was already had my foot out the door to get my real estate license.
That's awesome. I love hearing unique stories like that. You borrowed the neighbor's lawnmower to mow other people's yards. Like people email me and want to know like what if some of them have literally no money or just very, very little to start a business. And I tell them like consignment, like go find somebody's junk and sell it on eBay or Facebook Marketplace. That's a whole other one right there. Like go borrow somebody's lawnmower and mow a yard. You can make $20.
That is brilliant. The whole consignment thing you just said. I keep wishing someone would knock on my front door and offer to clean out my garage. They can have everything in it except for the vehicle and my wife, as long as my kids aren't in there. And well, I wouldn't give away their bicycles either. But just take it, sell it, clean this freaking garage up. Yeah. Like I go out there about every few months and spend a couple hours in a 6-pack. Just cleaning it myself, but it's that's a
plus you would get money for it too. So the consignment model for anybody that cares is they literally could take that junk off your hands, go sell it, and then split the profits with you. So you get money too and don't have to do any of the work.
That's definitely a Florida pain point, is those garages being filled to the max.
Yeah. And no one in Florida parks in their garage. I do, because we lived in Colorado for 8 years. So my wife parks and if you don't, birds poop on your car here. But we still park in our garage, and no one in Florida does that. Like it's full of jet skis and boats and
Wow.
stacked to the ceiling.
Steven, why do you say it's in Florida? Is it just because of the jet skis and the boats, or is it
No, I
people?
think it's because people from up north come down. They're used to having a basement, and I think they lose that
Oh,
space because
yeah.
we can't dig more than 5 feet down without hitting water. So then everything goes in the
Oh,
garage.
Yeah,
I learned
we don't have
something new
basements
today.
in
I didn't know
Texas
why.
either. Oh my
It's a good
God.
way for us to locate houses because there's normally something outside that's a little bit more run down that we don't want in the garage, and then it's a sign of they might be willing to sell stuff. So then we knock on the door and start asking what's for sale.
Oh my
That's
gosh.
cool.
Very cool. Well, I want to hear more about land because I know, Stephen, you're going to have some questions that are better than my questions. But thinking from a perspective, somebody that I've done real estate in the past, Brent, I actually had some rental property up in Indiana for a while, had a few apartment buildings actually. And then when I moved to Texas, it became really hard to manage those. My brother kind of was still involved, and that just didn't go well. In 2008 happened. So I know
Because your
some.
brother screwed it all up, or what?
Yeah, no, it wasn't my brother. It wasn't his fault.
Throw him under the bus, Ryan. Go for it.
It wasn't his fault at all. But there were actually three of us, and then it became my one partner backed out, and then my brother and I were trying to do it together. And then when I moved to Texas, that just impossible to run it from here the way we were doing it. I mean, we probably could have done something different, Stephen. I didn't know Stephen then, so he could have saved us from disaster. But tell us why land, because I can obviously think of, you don't have anybody calling you in the middle of the night that their toilet backed up. That's probably one huge advantage. But what do you say about that?
Yeah, I mean, you're absolutely right. We actually just sold a parcel of land in Indiana a couple months ago that we're getting payments for every single month. I couldn't tell you those people's names because they don't call. The only time they call is when they want to, pay extra or pay it off. Or change their card information, or hey, I got a new bank account, I need to add this. But why land? I talked about that first land mailing. I mailed a postcard. It was a handwritten postcard that said, "Hey, my name is Brent. I'd like to buy your land at 123 Main Street." If it had an address, if not, I'd just put El Paso County, Colorado, because I started this at Fort Carson, Colorado, where I was stationed.
Yeah.
And if you're interested in an all-cash fair price offer, call me or text me. God bless you. And if anybody wants that postcard, they can have it at thelandsharks.com/postcard. And it works. I bought millions of dollars worth of land with this postcard. Now, we've changed it a little bit over the years. I don't just mail tax delinquent land anymore, but it was a great start for me.
Yeah.
I had a list from the county that basically had people that were behind on taxes, and I had to scrub that list. Basically, I had to figure out what was the land, what was the homeowners, what was the single family residences, what was the mobile homes. And I hired someone in India to do that. Her name is Malika. She charged me $5 an hour to scrub that list, and then we mailed the list. And I mailed that postcard I just talked about. Well, I thought I was mailing the tax delinquent list. It was actually the county held tax lien list. This land was so inefficient, not buildable, not accessible, landlocked. And these people were years behind on taxes, and no one ever offered that to buy it from them until me. So it was almost like throwing a little tiny worm in a drying up pond, and the fish were just like piranhas. So they call and I'm getting to why land. The first man I spoke to was a retired CPA, the nicest gentleman ever. He said, "Hey, I got your mailer. I'd love to sell it. I traded it years ago for tax work, and I've been paying the back taxes, and now I'm just behind, and I'm about to lose it to foreclosure. So give me $285. It's yours." I didn't have to negotiate with this guy. I said, "Okay, great. Can I go look at the land?" And he said, "Yeah, sure. Here you go." Told me where it was at, gave me the schedule number, which is an assessor's parcel number. So I looked it up, figured out the coordinates, put it in Google Maps. There's better things for that, like Land Glide and Onyx Hunt that you can use nowadays.
Times have changed.
Yeah, I didn't know about this stuff in 2016, early 2016. One time Land Glide actually got me out of the woods. I was lost in the woods.
Oh my gosh.
Interesting.
Wow.
Yeah, Land Glide saved my life. That's a great testimonial for them. I wish they had an affiliate link. I would totally be sending that out. So I drove to it, and we're looking at it. We can't figure out what it's worth. And I'm like, why is this beautiful land? So we're leaving, me, my wife, and my newborn baby, brand newborn baby. And I call the real estate office at the bottom of the hill, and I was like, "Hey, what's this thing worth? What's the blowout price? I want to sell this thing quick." I didn't have any money or time because I was brand new Army officer, had all this debt from these freaking rentals. That my brother was running into the ground. No, just kidding.
Thank God my brother doesn't listen to my podcast.
Yeah.
I have a brother-in-law, and that's it. I don't have a brother, but so the realtor says, I think you could sell it for 10 grand, and I was like,
wow.
My eyes popped out of my head, and I was like, I've struck gold. I'm a genius. So I hang out. I think they're for a time. I said, I'll call you when I own it. I'm in the process of buying it, and she calls me back and makes an offer on it. She's like, I'll give you 5 grand for it. I was like, okay. So she bought it that Wednesday. That's next week. I paid the seller on Tuesday. He gave me a quit claim deed. I didn't do any title research, which was stupid on my part. Like I figured I was an expert real estate investor by this point. And
boy.
Got my $5,000 check on Wednesday, and then bought us another one that weekend for $500. So as you see, I'm doubling. They just get bigger and better.
You're doing arbitrage there.
Yeah. So gave this one $500 for another landlocked parcel of land. This one was landlocked, and I sold that on Craigslist on Sunday, like the next day, for $500 down and $500 a month. And that's the one that changed my life because it was a stream of income. It was paying my truck payment. And about the fifth or sixth one, I told my wife, I was like, look, we're paying my truck payment, your van payment. She was about to buy the van. Actually, we didn't quite own it. When people are like aspiring to own a van, that's when you got to worry because we had a second kid we were talking about. But it was covering multiple payments for us. And I said, this is crazy. We just need to do this like 5 more times.
Yeah.
And we have financial freedom. I can get out of the military and stop being away all the time because I was afraid history was going to repeat itself. I had a huge why. I didn't want to lose another wife. And this time kids were involved.
Exactly. Oh my goodness. Wow. When you get these deals, do you have to pay the back taxes?
Yes, I do pay the back taxes.
Okay.
Sometimes I'll just buy the land, or I used to do this. I don't do it anymore. I buy them all through title insurance policies now. I'm doing bigger deals because that allowed me to pay off debt and like build my bank account. But yeah, I would literally buy the land from the seller, leave the back taxes, and figure out when that redemption period was, and then I'd have to go to the county treasurer and pay cash to get that tax lien taken off. But I would do it with my buyer's down payment. Because I didn't have enough money to buy the land and pay off the taxes. So I was like just scrambling, figuring out how to do these deals.
Wow. Do you remember off the top of your head, if you were willing to share it, that $285 deal, how much taxes you had to pay on that one?
Believe it or not, the seller actually, that's what the 285 was. He didn't even keep the money. He just went down to the treasurer's office because I asked the title company, I was like, hey, what's going on with the taxes? Because it was literally like they gave me a $5,000 check, and they said, no, someone came and just paid them. So it was a seller.
Wow.
He didn't even care about taking the money. He just did not want that monkey on his shoulder.
That's incredible. Steven, jump in here. I know you got questions.
Well, I have a lot of questions about the note, but I know that's not for your audience. But I do want to know if you're somebody that has real estate and you want to add this to your portfolio, or say you are doing e-commerce or something else, how much time does this take up and how do you add it to? And is it that you're just trying to get the note, or are you flipping them for the cash, or does it always depend? I know it's like 6 questions in one. I apologize.
And so, Steven, why don't you? I know what you're talking about here, but explain. Like, maybe let me see if I can repeat this, and if this is what you're saying. Are you looking for that lump sum cash, or the monthly payments? Say no, you're looking for that monthly payment because he said that one deal that changed his life was the $500 a month stream of income. Is that's what you're talking about when you say the note?
Yes.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah, I do both. Sometimes I'll sell one cash to build my bank account back up so I can get another purchase. I'll buy another parcel of land, and then I'll seller finance that one. The big money comes in when I'm seller financing and creating these notes. And for anybody that's like, what is a note? Basically, a note is a promise to pay me a certain amount per month at an interest rate for this many years until they pay that total amount. That second parcel of land I sold for $5,000, but they paid $500 a month. 10 months, that's paid off. So basically they have to go to work to pay me for this land.
Yeah.
So my goal is to create as many of those notes as possible. So I'll do both. Sometimes sometimes I don't even have the cash. It'll be a bigger deal. I'm mailing right now some areas that will be buying the land for about 500 grand and selling it for 690, but I won't be purchasing them. I'm actually just getting them under contract, and then I'll assign my contract to a cash buyer. So there's multiple ways you can sell this land. Like, you don't need money to do this. And I wish I would have started that way and built my bank account, but I was, just getting a little bit of cash, then buy it, and then seller finance it. And then before I knew it, as far as the time, how much time this takes, I had to be on base at 6 a.m. to go do physical training with the Army. And then I would usually leave about 6 p.m. So 12-hour days pretty much. So I was figuring out a way to do this on, mornings and nights and weekends.
Wow.
With a brand new wife and a brand new baby. So I would say, 2 hours a day, but it took me about 9 months to get to about $9,000 a month coming in for income. I was hustling. I really was. And maybe some days I would go and sneak in the bathroom and take phone calls from sellers and buyers. But every lunch break, like, I wasn't eating lunch. I might have had some carrots or whatever, and I would slam those and make the phone calls, because I think people get carried away. They think they're building a business because they're listening to a podcast or educating. I hate when people say I'm in education mode. I was in freaking action mode.
Yeah.
Because I had 3 years from 2015 to I decided when my first son was born, I was getting out of the military because I was gung-ho for the military. I just became an Army officer. I was a sergeant when I was enlisted. And when that baby came out, my wife remembers, she was like, yeah, you were gung-ho for the Army, but when he came out, you were gung-ho of getting out. So I had 3 years. I had a ticking clock.
Yeah.
And I had to figure out how to make $5,000 a month.
Yeah.
And I wanted it consistent, every month coming in. And that's how land.
But you did $9,000 in 9 months.
Yeah. I was
$9,000 a month. That's incredible.
I saw the negative happen. I saw the bank taking my house and putting all of our garbage on the street and bags. I'm motivated by fear of pain. Yeah. Not towards pleasure.
Do you feel like this is for somebody who is interested in getting into real estate, this is the easiest way to do it if they don't have any money at all? Because you know a lot about real estate and all the different ways you can get involved in it, other than investing in something like Fundrise, for example, where it's totally, you don't even think about it. You just give them money and then they pay a percentage. But if you actually want to get your hands dirty a little bit, is this, in your opinion, the easiest option for somebody with very little money, if anything?
Hands down, 100%, because I didn't have money.
Yeah.
So I couldn't just put it in a self-directed IRA or a real estate investment trust or, buy stocks. Because the reason why I didn't buy stocks is oh my God, I don't have money to put in the stock market. So I had to go out and create money out of thin air. I mean, I can give you Alana Cohen's story. She's a single mom with 4 children. She just did her 3rd land deal that she made $28,000 net profit in the first 2 months of February. So she did it with no money, and no time. She's got 4 children, and she owns a interior decorating business. So she's not just living off of a trust fund either.
Yeah. Wow. That's incredible. Would you say the work of this is? Obviously, you said in the early days you were mailing out cards to people that were delinquent on their taxes. I'm sure there's other ways to find properties than just that. But what would you say the actual work of this is?
Where does the work come into play is just talking to sellers.
Yep.
Sometimes there's a little negotiation. Sometimes now we've kind of evolved into mailing out purchase agreements. Remember, I talked about selling my purchase agreement. Now, for instance, Ryan, let's just say that you own a piece of land in, let's use Steven. He's over there in the hottest part of Florida, that area. And I don't mean temperature. I mean, people are moving there like crazy. So I look on Zillow, I can see 19 parcels of land sold in the last 7 days in his area. And I'm like, oh my God, that's a high demand area. So I don't recommend people go to the middle of the desert where land is never selling. I mean, sometimes it does, and you can get great deals out there. But why don't I go to the west coast of Florida and see where on Zillow or Redfin? Oh my gosh, look at all those yellow dots on Zillow. Look at all those sold. Now let's click on each one of them. And okay, it looks like a parcel of land. It looks like on average is selling for about, $85 a square foot. Let's just say $100 a square foot for easy math. I'm making these numbers up. So I do a little bit of backwards planning, selling for $100 a square foot. The lot selling for about 100 grand, and I want to make 10 grand on it. So I'm gonna offer about 90, but what if a realtor brings a buyer? So 6% for the realtor. So now I need to offer 86,000 because we need to figure 6%, actually 84,000 because we need to figure another 6,000 for the realtor plus closing costs. So call that 83. And then let's just say my buyer wants a discount too. So my buyer's going to want a 10% discount. So I'm at about $75,000 or 75 cents on the dollar. And I can send Steven a mailer for his, 10,000 square foot parcel of land at 75 cents on the dollar, at a discount. And he can sign it and send it back, or he can throw it away, or he can call me and say, how dare you insult me? This is Florida and people are moving here like crazy. You need to bump your offer up. But there's so many ways you can do that. But I just we just got an asset under contract with none of our own money that we can make 10 grand on. We can sell that contract to someone. We can list it you can literally put some of these on the MLS without even owning it if the seller allows you and agrees to do it. Like, I don't recommend doing that behind their back. But that's it. And that's the practical ways to do it. If someone's like, I want to copy this purchase agreement that Brent's talking about, I already gave you how to get the postcard, but go to the landsharks.com/LOL, land offer letter, or laugh out loud, because you just got an asset under contract for 75 cents on the dollar.
That's awesome.
I have a question. Do you ever use options also, or is it always purchase agreements that you're using?
I have never done an option. I've had some big time investors say, yeah, why don't you do options? And it's just another tool in the tool belt. I personally never done an option.
Yeah, because I have not personally, but I've been involved in deals that are involving land on options, and I was like, oh, this is an ingenious way of doing it. But I was just curious from your perspective. But I think that same idea of sending an option contracts out, because then you do have the rights to list it on the MLS and everything else, because you have ownership essentially with doing it that way. But it is interesting. As long as you're having the conversation with the owner, you can kind of structure it any way that you want. I do have a question also about the notes. Do you have a go-to for like time or percentage that you're looking for when you're making those, or are they always different every land deal?
They're always different. Many years ago when I first started this, I would do 0% interest, and then I started charging 6% interest, and then we got really crazy and we started doing 30-year mortgages on some of these because I did these studies, and I'm like looking at all these banks. They're usually the prettiest, nicest buildings in every city and every state. And if you look at a $200,000 mortgage at 6% interest, if that person pays for 30 years and they never miss a payment, never refinance, they're paying back $430,000. That's more in interest than what they paid for the house. So the banks have it figured out. Now we're doing 9% and 12% loans, which I think we're about to drop that down a little bit, because with these higher interest rates, these buyers are loving it when they see like, oh my God, I can get a cheaper interest rate from you than if I bought a home right now.
And you could probably bump the price a little too.
Oh yeah, we're selling these for full retail because it's almost like a buy here, pay here car lot.
Yes.
Like, anybody listening to the show, stay the heck away from those. Like, it's almost like a high interest credit card buying but that's really what the land business is. But the only difference is land doesn't move. You don't have to chase it down when they stop paying.
You don't have to go repo it.
Right.
Wow.
Interesting.
Is it easy to buy a property that's not anywhere near where you live physically?
Yeah. I mean, I talked about the Indiana parcel.
Okay, that's right.
And we weren't mailing Indiana. And actually someone found us on the internet and said, hey, I got some lots. We bought a couple of them at about 30 cents on the dollar. I think we paid around, $4,000 for it. And we sold it for, I think, almost like 14 grand. So we actually more than 3x our money plus we're charging 12% interest. Now we didn't sell it for more than what it was worth. We sold it exactly what the retail was saying it was worth, but we are collecting payments on it at interest. So each land deal we do with notes, we charge a $20 a month note service fee as well. So that way the bookkeeper's paid and we pay for our note servicing software. We charge a documentation fee to write the actual contract for deed up. So it's just all these little things. They're just additional income streams.
Yeah. So they contacted you, that the folks in Indiana found about you guys and proactively reached out.
They said, "Hey, we got some land. Are you interested in it?" And I was like, "Well, we've never bought in Indiana before." So we went on Zillow and figured out who was selling all the land in that area, and we kept looking at who it was listed by and who it was bought by. So we figured out who the land specialist realtor was, and we asked them to go out there and see what they were worth, and they ended up listing it for us.
Nice.
That's genius. I want people to really pick up on that, because you're not you're an expert in land, but not in that area. But you were able to identify through looking at buy sells who's actually performing most of those actions, and then being able to reach out to that person. This is something that I think is being missed in a lot of these conversations, Ryan, is like, you just have to think slightly differently. But if you're in the mix, you can kind of process, like, what is the best way to go about this? You didn't get on a plane and fly out there and see what it looks like, but you found who the expert in that area was and was able to reach out to them and leverage their expertise. But that's genius.
Yeah, it took me years to figure that out, actually, because we made a bad buy. Unfortunately, most of the stuff I figured out is from mistakes. But we did a bad buy, and like, I've got a realtor everywhere we go now. And I had a student one time, a realtor stole a deal from him. And because he called me, he's like, "Well, what if the realtor steals a deal? I'm from California. That happens all the time." I was like, "Bro, that's never happened to me. You're crazy for even thinking about it." Well, guess what? It happened to him.
Yeah.
So now we figured out, well, how do we find the right realtor? Usually the realtor that's doing all the deals in the area is not going to be stealing, because they've got an amazing reputation. So, and then they'll tell you, okay, this is A Street. Be very careful about B Street, because they have septic systems and wells. A Street goes for $10,000 more per parcel because there's city water and whatever. Well, and septic, or city water and sewer. There we go. I threw a blank there. But that little thing can catch you pretty, like $10,000 difference. And you're like, "Oh yeah, looking at the whole neighborhood. Yeah, these comps are amazing. This one sold for 48. This one only sold for 28. I don't know why."
Yeah. They're about to pass something and force you to hook up, and the hookup is going to be at least 10,000. Yeah, there's a whole bunch of stuff like that. You need an expert in that area to.
Interesting. How does this compare to, like, with physical, like a house, for example? There's all the deductions that you get, appreciation, depreciation. With land, is there some of the same tax advantages, different ones, or what?
Nope, no, none. You don't get depreciation on land because there's nothing to depreciate. It doesn't go. So a house, the reason why you get the depreciation and cost segregation, which those are amazing tax benefits, and I utilize those. We own our office building. I've bought some rental properties that are vacation homes, but we rent them out so we can get that cost segregation. And you could virtually pay no money in taxes if you have the right CPA and you do this right.
Yeah.
But a building is like an apple that falls on the ground. Something either eats it or it rots. So that's the reason why the IRS gives you credits for that. Plus, you're providing housing and workplace and all that. So, there's this pretty good strategy. We actually use land income to buy more income producing real estate, which are like apartment comp. But I don't go in it alone. I invest with, my friend Colin that has a property management company, and he ran the whole 19-unit apartment complex. And, we bought our office building and rented out half of it. Nice. And then eventually we stopped using all of it and then rented out the whole thing. So that's how we get our tax savings through cost segregation and depreciation.
That's awesome. Stephen, I want to ask him about how he built the team, because I'm thinking about our VAs in the Philippines, how they could actually do this. But I know you probably have more questions, and feel free to go advanced if you want. I don't care. There are people listening that are into real estate that want to ask, deep questions. So go for it.
Well, I guess thinking about your audience, how long did it take you to evolve into that? Seeing that buying land is a great income source and it brings in cash, but then you're realizing that you had to pay a lot of taxes. How do you offset that now? Where was the evolution of that? And I'll let you answer that question. I have a follow-up question.
Yeah, that first year I was like, got that tax bill, and if you're like me, like I highly recommend set up profit.
Because that's short-term capital gains when you're doing that
ordinary.
Like that?
No, it wasn't even capital gains; it's ordinary income.
Ooh.
So even worse.
Is it because of the amount that you were doing?
No, because I was a dealer. I was being classified as a dealer because,
okay.
And how the IRS figures that out is like, did you plan to sell this before you bought it? And I said, yep.
Wrong answer.
But it was the honest answer. So I got that first tax bill, and I had just put all my money into another land deal. And it was about to be the biggest land deal. The problem with the entrepreneurs, or me anyways, I think a lot of real estate investors is like each time we put our profit, because I wasn't living off this money yet. I was living off of my Army income. So got a little profit, and the deals kept getting bigger and bigger. And I had all my cash, like hundreds of thousands of dollars rolled up in one deal. And it's like, you got to implement something called Profit First. It's a book written by Mike Michalowicz. And I read it when I first started business, 2016. It didn't make sense to me then. Well, I just read it again a few months ago, and it makes all the world of sense. Because I'm like, no wonder why every year in April I want to shoot myself in the foot. But no, I got that first tax bill, and I was like scrambling. So I fired my CPA. I hired another one, paid him like $6,000 just to consult me. And he's like, all right, do this. So we went, and the next year we bought like multiple buildings just to offset
the gains. Nice.
What's your follow-up question?
Well, the follow-up question was, as you're doing that, are you pre-planning, like when you're purchasing, to go, hey, I shouldn't flip this one because it's going to cause a big tax, and I should definitely put this into a note? And do you ever do that with the thought of selling that note or exchanging that note later?
Boy, you are a chess player. I'm a checker player.
Okay. I would love to talk to you later, because I think there's a lot of opportunities for you if you are holding a bunch of notes.
Yeah, I got like 70 of them right now. And we've been calling our payers, our buyers, to say, hey, if you could pay this thing off in the next 30 days, we'll knock 10% off or 15. My assistant's been.
But you don't sell to other people?
No, I've never done that. My students do it all the time.
Yeah, Stephen, run us through that real quick. What does that look like and the benefit of that? I think I get it, but I just want to make sure I'm tracking with you.
You're creating notes and mortgages, essentially.
Yep.
So he's stacking up a bunch of income, but he's essentially holding on to a lot of potential money. So gaining access to that money sooner is, I'm sure, a huge benefit to him, because then he can redeploy that money. And if he's making notes that were years ago where he's paying no interest on them, that's not a huge benefit to him, especially over the long term, because he's just losing to inflation or something else. This might be a little too high level. I apologize. But essentially, he's trying to cash out of old notes to redeploy that.
Because he's already at a point where the monthly income he's getting, he doesn't need any more monthly income.
That's an assumption. Maybe. I'm assuming. And
that. So he's,
We got one that's paying off in the next couple of days. It's going to be like $126,000. That one that's a 4.5%. So I'm kind of glad that one was going. I actually tried to seller finance for the buyer that's buying that land at 12%, but they thought I was out of my mind. So
did you tell them that you're? Oh, sorry, go for it.
I would have went down to 9, but they didn't negotiate. But did I tell them what?
Well, I was going to say that you're avoiding all those bank fees also. Like, I think people look at the percentage and they're still stuck on the percentage. Like, I can get for a bank for 8. It's like, yeah, but we're not charging origination fees. We're not hitting with all this other stuff. If you actually look at the numbers, the 12% is better for you. You're right.
You're absolutely right, because the banks, they call it origination fees, which are AKA points. They're like hard money lenders, honestly. So yeah,
and they just hide it and they move in everything. And but that's why we sit down with sellers when we try to do ordinary finance and just like go through everything. It's like, what is the bank actually going to charge you? See, I'm not doing this. I'm not doing this. A really good friend of mine, Jimmy Napier, used to lend money out, and then before it was back in the day when he was giving checks, he would like hold the check, and before he could take it out of his hand, he was like, "Remember now, I didn't charge you no original." Like go down everything to see why it was better to borrow from him at a higher interest rate than it was, and that was always stuck with me. But that might be
such a good point.
Book. I'll say it on here: "Invest in Debt" by Jimmy Napier.
I knew I heard that name before. That's why I knew that.
He's
name.
a good friend. He passed now, which is heart-wrenching, but he was extremely wise on notes, but I think it's a perfect book for you. Anybody in the
I'll read that.
It is expensive now. I suggest people try to look on eBay for people that are selling it like secondhand, but it's out of print, so the price is like
Steven, if it's out of print, can we reprint it for him? Can we reprint that? And who has the rights to it?
That is a very good question. I think another friend of mine, I'll have to reach out to him. That's a good question. He only sells it at his events, but he might be stopping events. I'll have to
republish that.
I'm sure there's someone that's bought a hoarder house that's probably got it in the garage, and
for
probably
sure.
got a copy or two
Exactly.
there.
For sure.
So, but no, I keep it this simple, Steven. I think I play checkers. I've never played chess. I'm just like I'm knuckle dragger in the Army. Like I wasn't smart enough to go in the Air Force.
Yeah, but it's funny because you're evolving into this, and I think that's how most people operate. I think everybody starts out as checkers. You got to do one move at a time. Otherwise, you're thinking too much and you're not taking action. I think the way that you're doing it is the way that it should be done. I just have a lot of experience in hang around a lot of 80, 90-year-olds where I go, oh, what about this? And then been a part of a couple of those where I go, ooh, this is like how it's really being done in a higher level. But the way that you're doing it, I think, is the best way to do it, because you learn, and then when you get burned, you learn that lesson for sure. Instead of somebody telling you, like when you read that book, you hear it, but you don't have any way to apply it. There's no bucket for it. But as soon as you get burned and you go back to that book, you're like, I know exactly how to apply this now because I've hurt myself. Our contract started as a 1-page. Now it's grown into like 4 or 5 pages because every time something happens, I go, okay, I got to put a paragraph like that in there. I never would have thought about that. Yeah.
That's so true. Well, I'll tell you, I keep it really simple. And, we do a couple, like I talked to you about those $500,000 and $600,000 deals. That's what gets us to $20,000 payments, but I have one focus. I have a very small team. And I have one land sales specialist, and we're actually migrating more to where realtors sell this stuff for us. And then we do a traditional closing and all that. And then we just set a note and a deed of trust. We're basically the bank. But I only focus, I want to bring in an additional $250 a month every single week. So 4 weeks, that gives me an extra $1,000.
Yeah.
3 months, that gives me an extra $3,000. So, and then so on. And it really compounds on itself. And, some pay off quick. Some pay off sooner. Some of them, these are 30-year mortgages that we probably could start selling.
That's so cool. Tell me about your team, because I'm curious about that. One of the things that Interview Valet said that you like to talk about is how you've been able to scale this using your team. So what does that look like?
Yeah, I'm actually scaling down at this point. So at one time I had 2 acquisition managers. We're down to 1 acquisition manager right now, and she's actually retiring. She bought a farm. She's completely debt free. Did a couple very smart investments. I hired Jen in April 2017. She was my second hire. The first hire was Malika, my virtual assistant. I have an in-house accountant. She's just a retired accountant with an MBA finance degree that she just wanted to kind of work from home because these notes kind of get a little crazy. And then we were also flipping houses. At the time, we had 8 or 9 flips going.
You are glutton for punishment.
Yeah, virtual. You want to know the fastest way to lose money in real estate? You flip houses virtually, and then your land business bails you out. Another reason why Profit First was forced on me. And now I coach people, and I'm like, Profit First. They're sick of me saying it. I know they are. But and then we have Orlando. He sells our land. He gets a down payment and a doc fee. Sometimes they'll just go to my website and buy it in the middle of the night. And Orlando has a right to deed or the land contract.
Are these people all local to you, or are they?
No,
they're all okay. All over the place.
No, we're all work from home now. At one time, we were mostly all out in Colorado Springs. That's why we had the office. I moved out of Colorado Springs to Florida. The office sat vacant for 1.5 years. Wow. Not a recommendation. We were like paying the snack bill and the coffee bill and the cleaning bill. It's like, wait a minute, there's no one there. Let me give you a quick tip.
Yeah.
after I tell you my team. There's one more person, which is my executive assistant. Her name's Kelly. She used to work for a guy named Mason, who's now a land shark. He's in our land sharks community. He used to be the CEO of a hospital out in Colorado Springs. And in 3 months, he quit his job. And I was freaking out. I was like, dude, you don't quit your job 3 months into building a business. He goes, trust me, I made more in 3 months in land in the last 12 months as being the CEO, and my body's deteriorating. So I hired Kelly, his executive assistant, and she's just unbelievable. She's the one getting people to pay off their notes quicker. But that's my team.
That's so good. Stephen, I'll let you ask a last question or so, and then we'll let Brent wrap
For
up
someone
here.
that has a business, they're looking to get started, is there a location that you would say stake around you? Is there a cost that you would suggest? What would a great beginning deal look like for someone that is just getting started in this and doesn't know anything about real estate?
Yeah, I recommend when just starting out, try and do it about 2.5 hours. Try and look at locations within about 2.5 hours of where you currently live. That doesn't work for everybody. It works for the majority, and I'm not dead set on that. But that's something about 2.5 hours. You could drive to it on the weekend, like I used to for my land. And let's just say you live in Orlando. And you can go to Zillow or Redfin, type in Orlando, and then go to the filter, hit sold, then scroll down and hit land. And then look what's happened in the last 7 days. All right, nothing really. Look what's happened in the last, month or then 3 months. And it's like, okay, nothing's I don't like this area. So exit out of Orlando, and then you kind of see the surrounding areas. Oh man, there's a little pocket over here. There's a little cluster of solds. Yeah, and let's just say you're in Indiana. You can do the same thing in Indiana. I'm not super familiar with that area, but there's pockets of solds or clusters, and that's what I'm looking for. It tells me there's demand. It tells me the price range. It tells me the size, and then I go pull a list of those landowners that own the land. And let's just say that in demand size is 10,000 square foot lots. Well, pull all the 10,000 square foot lots and mail those people that land offer letter or the postcard. And I don't want to get hung up on a price, because you can make money with bicycles you find on the side of the road for free. You clean it, wash it, and sell it, and you can make money with Porsches. Same thing. It's different prices. It's real estate's so micro, and then eventually you can expand. But I don't recommend it in the beginning.
That's good, Stephen. Anything else before we ask him to? I'm so glad you've been on here. You've added a whole depth of knowledge. So, well, Brent, tell us any last minute tips or just advice you'd say for people who are thinking about going this direction, or just any advice about being an entrepreneur.
Yeah, we already talked about taking action, being go mode, even if you're a knuckle dragger. But I was starting to mention one of the things I'm doing with Profit First, how we saved a ton of money on subscriptions. I hired a CFO too, a fractional CFO, not an in-house CFO. But he had me, his name is David Richter, with Profit First CFO. He had me go through every single expense and write, does this bring a return on investment now? Is this a need? And can I get rid of it? Because you can for instance, subscriptions. I had multiple subscriptions to Adobe. What's that?
Prune. Make sure you're pruning.
Yeah. Pruning. That's right. Because a dollar saved is better than a dollar earned. And what I mean by that is you're paying taxes on that dollar you earned. But so I got rid of multiple subscriptions to Adobe, people that didn't even work for us anymore that we were paying and same thing with DocuSign, they're $40 each. We got rid of websites we weren't using. I got rid of 36 phone lines we haven't used to market in a year. And then I went even crazier the other day. I reported all my debit cards lost, so people will stop charging them. So
that's a high level strategy right there.
Yeah, I think I shaved $1,000 in expenses just the other day off of MailChimp, a couple websites, and a few phone numbers. $1,000 a month.
That's brilliant.
So your income increases, and so do your expenses. But there's one thing about income. Sometimes it goes down, sometimes it goes up, but those expenses just keep rising like the housing market over the many years.
That's so good. Brent, this has been awesome, man. Let me just tell you, I love these conversations. So anytime you want to jump back on, if you want to geek out with Steven, I don't even have to be on here if you don't want me to. But this has been enormously fun. Good to meet you. And thanks for all you're doing and helping people get financially free.
Appreciate you guys very much.
You've been listening to Streams of Income with self-help author Ryan Rieger. From right here in the Dallas Metroplex, Ryan teaches several entrepreneurial courses and group coaching programs to students all over the world. Be sure to listen next week at the same time for Streams of Income with Ryan Rieger.